Okay, this game is Fischer versus Tal in the Candidates Tournament of 1959. Fischer wasn't quite ready for the likes of Tal at that time, and it was an interesting game nevertheless, and shows Tal's fine attacking technique. Tal was playing black, so Fischer played e4 against him, and Tal played the Sicilian defence. Now knight f3, d6, d4, all fairly standard. Now here Tal plays a6, which is a very popular move even today, just to stop this bishop b5 check possibility. Fischer plays bishop c4 here, so that's classically placing the bishop. Now Tal plays e6, so it has now a Scheveningen type pawn structure. These pawns are quite flexible later on. White always has to watch out when black liberates these pawns with d5 or e5 later. Fischer plays bishop b3, and now Tal continues just natural development with bishop e7. Fischer now plays f4, and you'll see here that black has a very natural development of pieces and can target later the e4 square. Black first castles, and then Fischer plays queen f3. Queen f3 is a little bit controversial because there's going to be a bishop fianchetto later on this diagonal, so this could get a tempo, but if the queen's being used as a pivot square via f3 to get to g3 later, then it's more justified. Queen c7, castles, now b5. So you see the bishop prepares naturally to go to b7, and also the bishop b7 works very well with this b5 b4 idea to dislodge the knight to increase the pressure on the e4 square. So all these pieces will be working very well together, the bishop here, the knight here. But also it is instructive later how Tal further exerts pressure on e4. So he wasn't just content with this pressure, as we're going to see. He plays bishop c6, which is a very nifty move, not only threatening to harass this dislodged knight, but also he's made space on b7 for the queen. So this is a very elegant setup indeed, where the queen and bishop can intensify that pressure on the e4 pawn. So Fischer really hasn't got an attack here. He hasn't got any pawns to sort of rip through white's king here, and he's a bit passive. Rook e1. And now at d5 immediately, so Tal doesn't bother moving any of these rooks. He goes on with this d5 liberation, and it establishes a very aggressive knight which can come now to f4, and also ripped open this line more to white's king. So not only positionally it was about the e4 pawn, it was about establishing a road to white's king, which in the case of Tal, any roads can often be decisive. Knight f4, c4 now. So this is a very interesting move. Interesting because it's a bit strange. It's sort of making a space for the bishop to move back to c2, but it does. I wonder if there was something better here. Let's have a quick look at this position. Maybe c3, for example, to try and rip open the c file, to share the c file at least. But anyway, so c4. Now Tal plays g6. Again, this is a very, very coherent strategy here about g2. You see this knight is also pointing at g2. And this g6 aims, in a way, to help this assault on the diagonal, as we're going to see now. Because after fg, Fischer doesn't casually recapture it with hg, which could have been good as well, because later he could play f5. He immediately plays f5. So he sacks a pawn. Fischer plays g7, which seems aggressive, but Tal just takes it, because he knows now he can also use this road to white's king, the g file. So things are intensifying now. After the king moves here, there's now rook g8 on the cards. So Fischer plays this knight c5, which is tactically annoying, but Tal just takes it, and takes again, and plays queen c7 now to hold up on e5. There's no knight e6. This knight's doing two jobs. It's attacking and protecting this square. Fischer now plays queen e3, intensifying pressure on e5, but just rook a e8, so black's position is quite solid. Rook e2 now, the exchange that is offered, it shows how bad white's position is. He's seen that this onslaught is going to continue now with rook g8. Tal now just takes that exchange, so there's the exchange up, so he's material up now, but he's still got this potentially dangerous attack, and he wastes no time with it. He plays bishop takes g2, so if the king takes just queen c5 even, or queen takes queen c5, so Fischer plays knight takes a6, then we see queen a7 check, king takes g2. But Tal is relentless in the attack here. He doesn't bother even taking this knight. He goes for Fischer's king. In fact, my analytical assistant says it's now mate in 6. So this was very precisely played by Tal. Now mate in 5. King h3. So Tal continues with queen g7, which is quite optimal. So there's a threat now of just queen h6 mating. Fischer continues bishop d1. And now the fastest, most efficient move is again chosen by Tal. So rook e6, with the idea of rook h6. There's absolutely no defence here. So Fischer in this position resigned. So this game is a very, very powerful demonstration of elegance in the attack. Just right from the opening, black's pieces were coordinating very well to pressurise the e4 pawn. If we look at this again, just briefly, b5. Works well with the fianchetto bishop on b7. The bishop c6 here vacates this square. The queen can intensify the pressure. No hanging around for moving a rook. Just an immediate d5 now break to open up the diagonal even more. And what's even more instructive now, the knight comes also to attack g2. But this g6 move. And Tal doesn't even mind, you know, the odd check, because he knows he's going to have another row to white's king on the g line. So Fischer really was quite devastated in this game in a way. Tal was at the peak of his powers, I think, at this time in 1959. Bishop takes g2 is just the fastest way to rip open the lines, and it's completely sound. And you see now the g file being used for devastating attack, and the h file. So it's a bit of a crush, you know. A Tal really did crush Fischer in this game. A very well played game.